So the first kits we're going to do for July are the Lavender Kits. Now we've got quite a few for this month. I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kits that involve lavender. So I'm going to show you how to do the white lavender planter kit, and basically it's just the same for all of them. So the lavender kits this month, we have the scalloped purple lavender kit, which is in this gorgeous tall 10cm sort of scallop pot. It's a really lovely little kit, somewhere to go sort of in a nice sunny spot in the home or in the garden. Then we have the Eliza lavender kit, which is in our new Eliza pot, new for July. So that's in a purple lavender. And then we've got a 16cm pot, scallop pot, which has the white lavender in. And then obviously the planter I'm going to do. And then we have the large 25cm planter, which has 2 plants of lavender in it to fill it. And then obviously as they grow, they'll kind of trail and really fill the pot. So I'm going to take you through the white lavender planter, but as I said, it's basically the same. I'll go through the tips and care for all of the pots, and you just sort of replicate it depending on which kit you have. Okay, so in your kits, you will have your pots, you'll have your gravel, your compost and your moss, 2 different types of moss this month. We have the bun moss, which is the sort of the chunkier one, and then we have the flat moss, which is more of the sort of woodlandy floor kind of moss. And then of course you'll have your plants. So we'll start with the planter, adding in the gravel that's in the brown paper bags in your kit. So the gravel's purpose is just to provide a little bit of drainage. Lavender do not like to sit with their roots in sort of water for a prolonged period of time. So the gravel just sort of aids that drainage to keep it all happy. And I'm just going to add in just a sprinkling of compost on top of the gravel, just so that the plant gets some kind of new nutrients from the new compost. Now these are fresh in and they are very buddy, so you might not be able to actually see any of the white flowers. Some of them aren't in flower yet, but there's lots of buds in and amongst the base of the plant. And it smells, white lavender I think smells like a mixture between lavender and mint. I don't know why, that's just the sort of scent that I get from it. So it's one of my favourites, I love it. I have it in my kitchen. And then you just take it out after giving it a really good drink. Now this probably does need a good drink, but I'll just go for it anyway. And what you'll find is your roots might be quite bound at the bottom. Now for the planter and for the other kits as well, you can just gently tease some of those roots and break some of the roots at the bottom. Now this kind of kick-starts the plant, I guess. It makes the plant energize into sort of finding the source of that nutrition in that compost. And I think it sort of anchors your plant really well. So I'm just going to take off probably about 1 centimetre of root, and then you'll get this nice kind of trailing root at the bottom, and that is what's going to get to that compost and that water source sort of a bit quicker than if it's sort of quite root bound in the pot. Okay, so I'm going to place my lavender just on top here. I'm just going to push it down a little bit, and now I'm going to fill in with the compost. So what you will find is that it will grow quite quickly. So we're basically putting a smaller plant into a bigger pot with the idea that with some lovely sun and good care, it will fill that pot beautifully. And the roots will be really strong in the base. Okay, so I've just popped all the compost around the sides of the plant, gently pushing that down until it gets to the top of where the plant compost is. Now you'll find in your compost, in your kits, there will be grit in there, horticultural grit, lots of goodness. It's a really good quality compost, and it will give your plant all the drainage that it needs. Now as you can see, at the moment it's sort of quite upright in the pot. As it grows over the next sort of week or so, it will start to relax, and it will start to sort of trail over the sides, and it will really fill the pot beautifully. Okay, now I'm going to pop in the moss on top. So I'm going to start with the bun moss, which is the chunkier version of moss, and just lay that simply on top of the compost. It just finishes the kit off really nicely. It stops the water from evaporating really quickly on hot days from the soil. Just popping in some flat moss now, just to add to sort of textures. And that's the base basically covered. Now with lavender, I have success growing this indoors. So I have mine on my northwest facing kitchen windowsill, and it does really well. I've had one there for 4 weeks, a purple one, a smaller one than this that goes in this pot. So I basically had this kit on my windowsill and it's doing really well. I like the fact that it goes quite leggy when it's inside, because it's obviously trying to find as much sunlight as possible so it grows quicker. I like that look where it's just quite relaxed. It looks beautiful. I enjoy looking at it every day. But obviously it's going to thrive better in the garden where you get like lots and lots of sunlight. So it's completely up to you. If you want to have it for indoors, my advice would be have it indoors, enjoy it, put it somewhere as sunny as possible. A windowsill is perfect. Enjoy it, look after it, and then when you feel like it's looking a bit tired, maybe it's not doing quite so well now, you can pop it in the garden, either in the pot or in the ground. And if it's in the ground, so if you put it in a pot, enjoy it in the garden if it starts to look a bit tired. Then come the end of the season, so at the end of summer, you can take it out of its pot, pop it in the ground, so dig a hole, put it in, forget about it, don't worry about it. It will die back and it will go sort of quite woody looking. You cut it back in autumn, and then the following spring it will start to kind of release its new shoots, and it will come back year after year. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to enjoy my lavenders indoors because I want to see them when I'm washing up at the kitchen sink. I want to see them when I'm, you know, cooking or stood at the island or whatever. I enjoy having plants inside, but then I know that I can then put it outside and I will have it for years. So the best way to look after your lavender, whether it's indoors or outdoors, in a pot, is it needs to stay relatively damp, but it likes to dry out slightly between waterings. So the way to see if it's kind of ready for a new drenching is just to put your finger into the soil. If it feels dry to the touch, sort of 1 centimetre below the surface, it's ready for a drenching. Now what I mean by a drenching is it doesn't like to be sort of watered little and often. It's a Mediterranean plant. It likes a really good water, and then it likes to be left alone probably for 4 to 5 days, maybe even a week, depending on the weather. So give it a really good drenching. To do this, you can put it in a sink full of clean water, give it half an hour, let it soak up all that water, take it out, put it on its saucer, tip any excess out that gathers in your saucer, so you know the roots aren't sat in water for a prolonged period of time. So tip the excess out and then leave it and let it kind of enjoy that moisture, and then in probably sort of up to a week's time it will be ready for another drenching. So that is the best way to care for lavender in terms of watering. So not little and often, one big drench, leave it till it feels dry at the top, and then give it another drench. In terms of sort of encouraging new buds to bloom, you'll see when you get your plant that you've got lots of little white buds on there and some flowers already. When these go over, so when they go brown, that's completely normal. You cut it near the base, and then that will send a hormone in the plant to encourage new buds to shoot up and to bloom, to get pollinated. It's just how it works. So cut at the base of the stem, and that will encourage new buds to bloom. Lavender loves sunlight, especially if you're keeping it indoors. It needs to be somewhere as sunny as possible. Like I said, mine is on my windowsill. It's not a south-facing window, so it's not going to get scorched. It's a northwest-facing window, but it is getting a decent amount of sunlight. In the garden, it's not quite so important. You can put it in part shade if you want to, but it does like sunlight. and just make sure your pot isn't drying out, which is a bit harder to do obviously when it's in the garden. But yeah, don't let it dry out. You'll be able to tell, like this one here, fresh in, it's looking like I probably should have given it water. I'll drench that in the sink and it will be like right as rain within a couple of hours. I think that's about it in terms of care for lavender. So sunlight, deadhead the flowers at the base of the stem to encourage new blooms to grow, water by drenching and allowing it to dry out a little bit, and that's about it. In terms of the different kits, they're all the same. So all these four have all got one plant in. Your 25 centimetre, I think it's called, gosh, what's it called? It might be called the Scalloped Lavender Planter Kit, I think, the purple one. That's got 2 purple lavender in. And I know it goes against all, you know, florist kind of rules about having odd numbers. I've tried it with 1, it didn't feel quite full enough. 3, I feel like it would be then competing for the moisture and the nutrients in the compost. So I've gone with 2. You won't be able to tell there are 2 plants in there, especially after a week or so of growth. So you'll either have 2 big plants that can go side by side, or you will have 3 smaller plants that will go in a little triangle. But you just pop them in, same principle as all the other kits, and that's about it really. So yeah, sunlight, drenching, let it dry out, and deadhead the brown flowers when they go over. And that's about it. Hope you enjoy your lavender kit.